Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited for today's episode because we're diving into something that can seriously make or break your business: numbers and data. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, seriously, numbers? Stick with me. Because today, in the restaurant and hospitality world, data isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's the secret sauce that separates thriving businesses from struggling ones. I'm sitting down with Ashley Robinson, founder and head of strategy at the Seaker Group, a powerhouse in business strategy and a master at decoding the numbers that truly matter. We're breaking down and nerding out on the must-know metrics, uncovering common mistakes, and revealing the insider strategies that could be holding your business back or propelling it forward. But here's the kicker. Growth isn't just about making more money. Ashley's bringing fresh, no BS insights on how to scale smarter, not harder. Whether you're running a small cafe or a full-scale hospitality empire, if success is your goal, this episode is a non-negotiable. Ashley, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Dana. I have been listening to your podcast. It is so fun to be on with you. I wish I could start every morning with 15 minutes with Dana.
To reach that.
Yeah. Let's get this figured out. No, I'm excited to be on here. This is something really passionate. Love, obviously, talking about the Seaker Group. It was born out of 25 years helping restaurants and retailers grow nationally. I literally started while I was in college, watching some of the great now sort of legacy brands grow across the country, and was very aware of this 80% failure rate in the restaurant business for growing restaurants, and just thought, gosh, that seems unacceptably high of a failure rate, and had this burdensome curiosity to figure out why so many concepts fail, and spent the next 25 years trying to figure out a solution until I was able to found the Seaker Group in 2021. So here we are today, and we were able to model around profitability and scale for growing restaurants and retailers.
Yes, it's amazing. And I usually start with the first time I meet someone, and I purposely wanted you to introduce yourself first because I do think it's relevant to my story. We first met through an introduction from Jim Bayless. And I mean, I think we all decided that he's our number one. So thank you, Jim, for the introduction. But we sat and we had this amazing lunch at Avra, and I talk about it all the time. And what I found most interesting was at first when I heard about you and we even spoke briefly on the phone, I was like, oh, real estate. Everyone does the same thing. And then when we really sat down and understood what you're doing and how you're helping restaurants and retailers, it's just so much more interesting how you go into actually where people are and what they're doing and why they're doing it. And you told me some really great stories about some big brand retailers that I'll let you talk about, and how you were able to help them grow in this market. And like you said, you started in 2020, which most people at that point didn't even know what to do about real estate. So do you want to talk about like your first big project and how it really impacted the industry?
Yeah, for in terms of Seeker Group, to your point, I did start working. Well, really, I was born into this business, and when I tried to think about where it all started, it was like thinking about Christmas and people asking if I'm on the naughty or nice list. I'm like, well, tell me what the interest rates are. Tell me what the interest rates are, and I'll tell you whether Santa's showing up this year or not. So this is very much in my blood. But I say to your point about being differentiated, if you think about the traditional real estate environments, real estate professionals are typically focused on occupancy costs. And this is a big part of where restaurants have, I think, had a misstep, or this is where many fail, is they think, well, and I call it the persuasion of a free look, right? They think that they get a free look at these markets because they lean on brokers who often are working for free until a deal is done. And so they think, well, we don't know if we should go to Denver or Phoenix or Dallas. Brokers are free. Let's engage a local broker and see what's available. The mistake with that is if the real estate professionals are focused on occupancy costs, most of us know that's 8% of a P&L. That's 8%, right, is where you want to be typically of your sales. And so the other 90 some percent, depending on where your occupancy is, goes completely unmeasured. So we take this holistic look, and that really is one of my inventions was, okay, occupancy is important, but we should be measuring all the sales drivers and cost drivers. And that is a holistic look where in 2020, back to your question, Dana, the reason that I really launched during COVID is people knew me as, a growth expert, but I became a solvency expert at that time, where people understood that they needed some immediate solvency action to stay afloat. And I was able to help many restaurants stay solvent and not file bankruptcy and avoid a really bad end because I looked at the full picture. We used the 10 things for profitability instead of just saying, let me help you get a rent reduction.
Literally, my next thing was talking about your 10 things of profitability. And I know it was really important to both of us that this not be like a commercial for the Seeker Group, right? It's really, and that's why I want to talk about this is regardless what you're doing or who you're working with, it's not just about the one line of occupancy, right? We need to understand the entire picture. So why don't you talk a little bit about what are those 10 things that we should be looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting when I talk about the 10 things, most people, especially those who are in the restaurant business or the retail business on a national level, kind of like, yeah, this is really obvious stuff. And then the next question is like, well, why is no one else looking at it this way? And the reason is we just haven't, as an industry, had the infrastructure to think about scale properly. So if anyone who, grows restaurants knows, you typically have a performa that gives you the specifics of a deal, meaning like what is the potential for cash and cash return profitability for this one site? The things that are not often measured when thinking about national growth that are the sales drivers and cost drivers that lead to profit. If you picture a P&L in your mind, you will see the sales drivers on top, right? Your credits and then your debits, and then the bottom line on profitability. And the same could be applied to markets. So we think about it in terms of what is the full market build out of a market? So what is your market potential? If you
Right.
can
So it's
only
not just that one line.
right, not just the one line, but really how many units can you build in a given market? That absolutely has a direct correlation to your profitability. What are your multi-unit efficiencies? If you have enough money to open one store and that one store will add efficiencies to a market, or you can put it out by itself in its own market, that has direct implications to the profitability of your entire fleet. I'm going to be floating through these so just for
Yeah, no, I love it. This is like my favorite activity is listening to other people be smart.
Oh man, we got some big shoes now, high expectations.
Right.
The next one is really important because it is the subjectivity that especially restaurateurs and founders hold so dear, but often go unmeasured, which is your brand and consumer perception. If you are a foodie, authentic restaurant, I always tell people if somebody knows nothing about your brand other than the location they see online, what will that location tell the customer about your brand? So if you are, I had a client that was an upscale, sustainable sushi restaurant. Being in a market like San Francisco or Seattle will lend credibility to that mission versus, a very remote small market that might have really cheap rent. This is a real life example.
Right. Sometimes you need that marquee location, or the rent number might need to be a little bit bigger so that you could show your brand and your mission is part of that all inclusive
Absolutely.
conversation.
Yeah. And that goes from the market and the site level. Obviously, top line revenue. What is the top line revenue potential is really important. And this is where most data companies focus. A lot of restaurants have, X amount of data software that they subscribe to in hopes of getting this crystal ball, top line revenue projection. And again, that's one of our 10 things that we measure. It should not be everything. And I've been in-house with several different restaurants, growing restaurants. And so often people forget. I was in house with a national brand, and one of these data companies told us, wow, we can do $3 million more, $4 million more top
Oh,
line if we operate in California than our other home markets with
they
Texas.
forgot about B-roll.
Well, what they didn't tell us, which Seeker would, is we actually would have to do $5 million more just to be profitable. And in this case, 4.5 million was the average. We had to do 7 million to be profitable in California and 11 million for the same returns in Seattle. They forgot that part. So top line is important, of course, but it is not everything because at the end of the day, we're here to be profitable, not just to make top line revenue. Top line revenue is only valuable if you're still profitable. So yes, it's important. And we also are take an approach to make it a very transparent top line revenue. If you're using a model as an owner and a restaurateur and you can't explain why that number is that number, it's useless in a boardroom.
There's so much data out there, right? And we're constantly like seeing numbers and seeing statistics and seeing all of these things just flying at us constantly from all these different technologies. What you've been able to do for your clients, and I know that you even do like consultations for private equity and all those different great people in retail and restaurant, but what you're really doing is taking the data and using it, which is shouldn't be so mind-blowing, but it happens to be sometimes that someone could find a way to make it work.
Oh, it's so true. I just used this example with someone I think yesterday about this is the common mistake that most concepts do is they will sign up for all these data companies and expect the answer to be in the data.
Right.
And I usually say, when you get into a car, do you say, "Hey, GPS, where am I going?" Right?
Right.
Like,
You need
where
to
should
know
I
where
go?
you're going. It can help you get there.
Yeah, and the same applies to data. What you ask, and then allow, let's say you're going to pull up, the map in your phone and say you wouldn't type in like, "Hey, let's go to the best restaurant." I think it would
Right.
well, how do you define best? Do you want to go to the authentic local restaurant? Do you want to go to the cheapest restaurant? Do you want to go to the best experience or the highest quality food? The same goes for growth and real estate in any operator is you have to define what good means, and good can be different depending on where you are in your expansion plans. Then the data can become really useful. So we're not only just using the data, but we're helping to define what is good in an objective way. And that's the key to using data. If you have to ask, you have to ask an objective question.
Right. Well, it's like when people say, and I'm sure you get this all the time, totally off topic, but what's your favorite restaurant? And I'm like, give me a scenario and I'll tell you where I want that story to take place. But
Yes.
like favorite, like
Right.
depends on the day of the week and who I'm with and all those other fun things that
There's
we always
so
want to
much
talk about.
context. Yeah, there's so much context, and people, I think it's easy to forget that the same applies to data and really the decision making around being able to scale.
No, that's awesome. And I think one of the other things that you've been doing that everyone should be looking at is just really understanding what we need to know, how to know it, and then really all the factors in growth of the businesses. Give me one of your favorite stories of someone you worked with. And I know that there's a few retail ones I could think of immediately. And I know you just told us the sushi concept, but give us one more great story of how you really just helped change the outlook for someone.
So we just had our financial acumen panel at the World Conference. And I had a story that I would have told, but I didn't want to take time telling it. But I think you saw the program, Dana. One of the things we did is instead of just say, "Hey, here's all the financial acumen you need," it was really like the decision making of what are the 5 steps to smart decision making. And an example I had around that was during COVID. I got a call from a private equity individual who said, "I've told that you can help us decide whether we have a good deal or not on a rent reduction." So I said, "Okay, let me hear it." And this person patched in the CEO and CFO, who basically described the savings of $250,000 a year for that year in Manhattan. And I said, "Okay, there's a reason that you don't know the answer to this question. And the reason is it's not the right question," right? That's not the right question to
Right.
say, is this a good deal or not? And if you think about the 5 steps that we talked about is asking the right question, time, location, context. And so we followed on, after the next couple weeks to say, what occupancy do you really need to be at? Like, how many seats do you need to fill to be breaking even? And in a market like Manhattan, it's just surprise to no one that you need to be close to 70% of your seats to break even. And as so many people know far too well, we are restricted in our industry to 30% of occupancy in the restaurants. So the next question, of course, is like, how much money will you lose through the end of the year? And the answer, was, well, we'll lose, if you're at 100% of 30%, how much money will you lose? Well, we're going to lose $1 million through December.
Right. So
Okay.
250 rent reduction doesn't win.
Exactly.
Even
Exactly.
me, I understand that.
And then there's some other steps that we went through that I won't share, but I think it's just an illustration of the pitfalls of looking through one lens in one department of our business and not taking a full holistic approach that is grounded in profitability, sustainability, and really the holistic nature of the business, and taking in all of the factors is so critical.
Right. No, I think it's great. And I think what you're doing is wonderful. And as always, I love speaking to you. I always learn so much. And I can't wait for you to come visit me back in New York sometime soon, or we'll meet on the road and who knows what country and what state, city, doing
I like
whatever it is you're doing. But I do think, and again, I know it's not commercial, but Ashley mentioned the Seeker's Guide to Smart Decision Making. I had a chance to go to Whirl, which was for the Women in Restaurant Leadership Conference recently. It was a great handout. So if someone is interested in learning more about smart decision making, I'm sure Ashley at the Seaker Group will be able to provide that same handout to you, because it really was just really, really smart and well done. So, Ash, thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you, Dana. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Dana Delivers. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I want to encourage you to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and share it with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else who could benefit from it. We have great conversations with top leaders in the restaurant, franchise, and hospitality space, where they offer their knowledge and expertise and give us valuable insight into these industries. If you have any questions or observations you'd like to share with me, please reach out at dana.zukovsky@aprio.com or visit our website at aprio.com to learn more about all the different ways Aprio can help your business. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to delivering more valuable content soon.